What we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. This is Exposé coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria, every Monday on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook simultaneously. I'm the regular host, Tony Akinyemi. Don't forget, what we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. Hello and welcome to Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. It's my joy to be with you today to continue our conversation on environmental toxins, their impact on our health, and what we all need to know and do so that we can prevent the hazardous effects of these environmental toxins on our health, particularly on the health of our children. We signed off last week discussing plastics. And we referred to a study that was conducted between 2003 and 2004 by the National Institute of Health in the USA, by the CDC, and over 93% of the subjects, over 2,500 subjects, precisely 2,517 subjects were tested, their urine samples were tested, and over 93% of them had plastic found in their urine, particularly bisphenol A. And then in the Netherlands, as well as the United Kingdom, it was found also that people had plastic deep in their lungs as well as in their blood. And so plastic is ubiquitous, it's everywhere. We need to know what effect it can have on us and need to learn how to relate to plastic so it doesn't damage our health. So let's go. Don't forget, what we need is not more medication, but more education. And my concluding remark last week was the fact that our educational institutions in particular now need to begin to consider the review of our school curriculum, particularly in the area of general education. In the universities, we have general studies where general themes are discussed. And I'm saying that some very relevant, very important and fundamental pieces of information that all of us should be acquainted with are missing in our curriculum. And we need to review those curriculums and ensure that we incorporate these lessons in there. They are part and parcel of our survival, our longevity, our health, potential as we grow and as we live on the planet. So today, I want to start by discussing the 7 categories of plastic materials out there. They are coded. If you look at every plastic, bottle in particular that you have, if you have a plastic bottle, I don't have anyone around me here. I wanted to show you. Okay, I didn't come with my water bottle today. Maybe when I come next week, I will have a plastic, bottle to show you. And we can get that hopefully before the end of today, and I can show you what to look for. Now, if you turn the base, the bottom of your plastic bottle, if you can get any type of bottled water, turn the base, and you will see at the bottom, you see a triangle with 3 arrows chasing one another. That is the recycled sign, the sign of recycling. Okay? In other words, this material should be recycled. Okay, when you look at the triangles chasing one another, the arrows chasing one another, forming a triangle, you find a number at the center of that triangle. It could be number 1 or number 2 or number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7. Those numbers are not arbitrary numbers. In fact, I was speaking with a particular, the CEO of a plastic making company in Nigeria. The company manufactures plastic bottles. So I was speaking with the CEO of that company. The CEO is a university graduate. In fact, he has a postgraduate degree as well. Okay? Of course, not in polymer chemistry, not even in the sciences, but in the humanities. But he was the CEO of the company. So I was asking him, what is the significance of this number at the base of the bottles that you manufacture? And he couldn't tell me what it was because he didn't even know. He said, well, it's just an arbitrary number that we just put. I said, no, it's not an arbitrary number. The numbers are supposed to be indicative of the type of plastic material that that particular bottle is made of. So there are 7 major categories. The first plastic category has the plastic code number 1. When you see 1 in that triangle, in that recycle sign, that means that that particular plastic coded as number 1 is PET or PETE. That's the kind of plastic that is typically used for nylon, to make your nylon. Now, this type of plastic is very thin, transparent, and clear. And plastic products that are made of PET, that is plastic code number 1, are the type of plastic that should be recycled and not reused. They are not to be reused. Unfortunately, you see, most of the bottles that are used for our bottled water are PET, plastic code number 1. And many of us use them to store water over and over and over and over in our refrigerators. You buy the bottled water, you drink the water, instead of disposing the plastic bottle appropriately for it to be recycled, we go ahead to actually start using it to store water and keep in our refrigerator, particularly in Nigeria. That's what we do. I used to do it before, but for almost 20 years now, I stopped doing that. In my family, we now use glass bottles to store water in our refrigerator. We don't use plastic bottles anymore, except we buy a carton of bottled water, okay, and we store the bottled water in the fridge. But once we take it and drink, we don't reuse the bottle. We throw them into the recycled bin so that they can be recycled. All right, so PET, or plastic code number 1, is not supposed to be reused. The more you reuse it, the more the plastic material and the chemicals in the plastic material will leach or migrate into the content of the bottle. That's why when you see what we call pure water in Nigeria, I don't call it pure water, I call it poor water, P-O-O-R, instead of P-U-R-E. I call it poor water. Because most of the time what you find is that people put the water in these nylon bags and they seal them off and then they put them in bundles. Where they sell them, typically, even those who are selling these so-called pure water, but which I call poor water, don't even know how to store them and keep them. They just keep them outdoors. And you know, Nigeria is in the tropics. There's a lot of sunshine, a lot of heat. So they put those pure water sachet bundles all out there in front of their store, and the sun is heating it up. And the hotter or the warmer the content becomes, the more the nylon, the plastic material, PET, the more it leaches into the water. Sometimes people just buy the water, they just use their teeth to cut it off and break it off, and then they put it in their mouth and they're drinking. Sometimes if your taste buds are really very sharp and sensitive, you're likely going to taste nylon in that water. So you are not just drinking water, you are drinking plastic. You are drinking, nylon along with that water and some of the chemicals in the plastic. But when you use those nylons or plastic bottles once and you don't reuse them, they are considered to be safe for one-time use. Mark my words. Plastic bottles and nylons to store water, as long as the water content is not hot or warm, then they are considered to be safe for one-time use and should never, never, under any condition, be heated up or reused. They have to be recycled, and they can be recycled into fabrics and carpets and various other things. You see many people, scavenging all over Nigeria in particular, gathering all these plastic bottles and nylons, and they're taking them to factories for them to be recycled. They can be used for carpets. They can be used for different kinds of things, okay? That is recycling. so that the environment can be mopped of all these toxic plastics. So don't reuse your nylon for storage of water or any liquid for that matter. That is plastic code number 1. So when you see 1 at the base of your bottle, that's what it means. When you see 2 in that triangle, plastic code number 2, it means that that plastic was made of HDPE. What is HDPE? High density polyethylene. High density polyethylene. Now, high density polyethylene is a type of plastic that is very thick and opaque. It's an opaque type of plastic, and if made into a container, you should only refill it a certain number of times. You can reuse, that one a certain number of times, but not indefinitely. It can also be recycled into fabrics and carpets and various other household materials. Then there is plastic code number 3, which is PVC. PVC. PVC is polyvinyl chloride. Polyvinyl chloride. Now, this type of plastic is known to release toxic breakdown products like phthalates into food and drinks when you use them to store drinks. So when you see plastic number 3, the tendency to leach into the food is very high. Now, the manufacturing of PVC is known to release highly toxic dioxins into the environment. And PVC is not easily recycled. In fact, in some countries, they don't even recycle PVCs at all, okay? PVC is dubbed the poison plastic because it contains numerous toxins, which it can leach throughout its entire life cycle into the content. Less than 1% of PVC material is recycled, all over the world. So number 3 is polyvinyl chloride, or PVC. Number 4 is low-density polyethylene, or LDPE, low-density polyethylene. Now, this type of plastic is soft, is flexible, and commonly found in plastic wrap and grocery, bags, or garbage bags. Those are plastic number 4, low-density polyethylene. It is considered to be one of the safer types of plastic, but it's easy to avoid, using that type of plastic by switching to reusable shopping bags and recyclable garbage bags, as well as, glass food storage containers. And then plastic code number 5 is polypropylene. When you see number 5, that is polypropylene. This type is hard but flexible, and it's considered to be one of the safer plastics, but really, like we always say, there is no such thing as a completely safe plastic. All 7 types of plastic have their hazards, okay? Now, number 6 is polystyrene, and that one is very easy to identify. It's a rigid plastic. This type, it can leach a particular toxin that is known as styrene, which is a serious neurotoxin. It is very toxic to the central nervous system. It can cause harm to the reproductive system as well. And it's the type of plastic that is used to make styrofoam cups, styrofoam trays, and styrofoam takeaway bowls, mostly used by fast food restaurants. And this type of thing, this type of plastic material should be avoided as much as possible. Now, if you look at the image, I believe they will show you the image right now. You see a fast food bowl that has fast food in there. They used to serve, that is polystyrene. That is plastic code number 6. Now, many fast food restaurants use this type of plastic to serve food. If I were you, I would never allow anybody to serve me my food in plastic code number 6, polystyrene, because of the possibility of leaching styrene, which is a very toxic substance, into the content, into the food. And most times, the food that is served into those plastics, plastic number 6, are actually hot food. And that's very dangerous, okay? The toxin from that plastic is neurotoxic. It's toxic to the nervous system. It also has a harmful effect on our reproductive system as well. And then the 7th one is just categorized as others, or miscellaneous. That's plastic code number 7. So when you see 7 in that triangle, it represents any type of plastic that doesn't fit into numbers 1 to 6. And many types of plastic that fit into this category are typically made from bisphenol A or BPA. Now, an example of plastic code number 7 is polycarbonate. Polycarbonate belongs to this category number 7, and it is usually used to make, water bottles, sports bottles, clear plastic cutlery, to line metal food cans and what have you. Now, so even if a product labeled as code number 7 claims to be BPA-free, it can still contain dangerous compounds, that leach into our food or our beauty products, whatever it is that we put inside. Now, of primary concern with plastic number 7 is the potential for chemical leaching into food or drink products that are packaged in polycarbonate, containers. And most of those containers are they are made using bisphenol A or BPA. BPA is a xenoestrogen, a synthetic estrogen. It has an estrogenic effect. It mimics the effect of estrogen on our body. That's why it's called xenoestrogen. Xeno means the kind of hormone-like substance that is coming from outside the body into the body. It's not natural, it's synthetic. That's why it's called xenoestrogen. And it is a known endocrine disruptor. It disrupts some of the hormones produced in our endocrine system, particularly the reproductive hormones. So those are the 7 categories of plastics. When we come back after this short break, I'm going to show you a chart that we list, on the screen, all the 7 categories of plastic and then the features of each and every one of them. So don't go away. Don't forget, what we need is not more medication, but more education. I'll be back shortly.
Get ready for an unforgettable experience at the 5F Conference coming to you this September. This one-of-a-kind conference is designed to focus on 5 key areas: faith, family, future, finance, and fitness. Prepare yourself for an extraordinary session with our dynamic 5F Conference speakers, Reverend Tony Akinyemi, Pastor Wole Abayomi, Professor Bamitale Omole, Pastor Wesley Ogude, and Reverend Austin Upohe. Secure your spot now at 5fconference.tsfchurch.com.
Meet Emily. She is passionate about living a healthy life, but finds it difficult to access information on health and wellness.
Cancer is survivable.
That is until she discovered the online healthy living training offered by Reverend Tony Akinyemi on lms.rafainstitute.org. The online healthy living training program is a comprehensive interactive course that covers topics such as nutrition, fitness, stress management, and mental health. The course is designed to provide participants with practical tips and strategies to improve their health and well-being. Emily is now equipped with the knowledge and skills she needs to live a healthy life. Join Emily and countless others in living a healthy life by signing up for the online healthy living training program today.
Hello and welcome back to Exposé. I'm a regular host, Tony Akinyemi is my name. What we need is not more medication, but more education, for the best prescription is knowledge. We're talking plastics today as part of the environmental toxins that impact negatively on our health. And we're looking at the 7 different categories of plastic materials and their unique features. Before we went on that break, I ran you through all the 7. And now I want them to show you on the screen, a chart, which is the summary of the different types or categories of plastics. Plastic types in summary, I call them. So you see the first one, you see that triangle with 3 arrows chasing one another. That is the recycle sign, recycle. Okay, and you have embedded at the center of that triangle numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So plastic number 1, again, is polyethylene terephthalate, which is PET or PETE. They use that type of plastic in bottling soft drinks, mineral water, fruit juice, cooking oils, and what have you. And then plastic type number 2 is high-density polyethylene, or HDPE. They use those type of plastic to make milk jugs, cleaning agents, laundry detergents, bleaching agents, shampoo bottles, washing and shower soaps. And then we have plastic type number 3, polyvinyl chloride, or PVC. They use them for trays, for sweets, for fruit, for plastic packaging, for bubble foil and food foils to wrap foodstuff. And then the 4th type of plastic is low-density polyethylene, or LDPE, which is usually used to make crushed bottles, shopping bags, highly resistant sacks, and most of the wrappings that we find around. The 5th category, plastic type number 5, is polypropylene, PP, which they use in making furniture, consumer products, luggages, luggage bags, toys, bumpers of vehicles, the lining and the external borders, of our cars and what have you. And then we have the 6th category of plastic, which is polystyrene. They use them in making toys. Can you imagine, for our children? And these children will put these things in their mouth. They use them in making hard packaging. You find them in our refrigerator trays, in our cosmetic bags, in our costumes, in jewelries, in CD cases, for our CDs. And then in vending cups, they use polystyrene. And then the category number 7, they use, the other categories or miscellaneous category. You have things like acrylic, polycarbonate, polyarctic, fibers, and then nylon and fiberglass. All of them belong to other categories. But there is a new so-called safe bio-based polymer plastic products that is, being produced now. It's a new generation of compostable plastics. In other words, the kind of plastic that can decompose, that can degrade, kind of biodegradable, so to speak. It's a new generation of compostable plastics. They make them from bio-based polymers, like corn starch, for example. This type of new generation plastic is now being developed to replace polycarbonates. Now, these are also this type of plastic, this new generation compostable plastic, is also categorized under group number 7. And sometimes that can be confusing, to consumers. Now, these compostable plastics, they have the initials PLA on the bottom, near the recycling symbol. So when you see that triangle, the recycling symbol, and you see PLA near it, that means that it is made of compostable plastic, okay? Bio-based polymers, all right? Now, some may also actually write compostable on the plastic. Now, despite the fact that the materials used to make these compostable plastics are bio-based polymers, like cornstarch, nevertheless, toxic chemical additives are still used in manufacturing these bio-based polymer plastics. So even though the plastic material itself is safe, yet there are additives added to them to make them hard or make them flexible, to introduce certain features into them. And those chemicals that are added to these bio-based polymers now make them to have some element of toxicity in them still. That's why we say there is no safe plastic anywhere. So again, you have to know that number 7 plastics are not for reuse unless they have the PLA compostable coding on them. Now, when possible, it is the best is to avoid plastic number 7, especially for children's food and children's toys. Okay? Now, plastic with the recycling labels numbers 1, 2, and 4 at the bottom are safer choices, because they don't contain BPA. They are BPA free. Now, when we say safer choice, it doesn't mean that they are safe. It means that they are the least in terms of toxicity. Okay? You must bear in mind that there are no safe plastics. Now, the plastics industry, of course, because of this coding and labeling, which they were compelled to conform to due to legislation and various regulations, the industry has conformed to regulations by applying the required codes to their consumer products. So it is now up to individuals to read those codes, to be able to decode them, to be able to understand those codes, to guide us in our choices. By understanding these simple classifications and categorizations I have made, we can best use plastic to our advantage while minimizing the health and disposal issues that may otherwise arise from these plastic materials. So if you are not aware and you don't know that plastic are of different types and they can exert different effects on our body, then you can be using the wrong plastic for the wrong purposes, and that can be leaching toxic substances into your body, and that can create health problems. Plastics are made from a complex combination of chemicals, including additives that give them strength and flexibility and other features. So both the plastic material itself and the chemical additives added to them to achieve those features can be toxic. Now, in the year 2021, about 2 years ago, an analysis was made on plastics, and that analysis identified more than 10,000 unique chemicals used in plastics, more than 10,000. And out of these 10,000 unique chemicals, more than 2,400 of them are of potential concern. Almost 1/4 of the chemical materials are of potential health concern. Now, this study and analysis was done by Scott Coffin, a research scientist at the California State Water Resource Control Board. And according to him, many are not adequately regulated. Many of these 2,400 potentially harmful chemicals that are used in the plastic industry are not adequately regulated in many countries. And they actually include about 901 chemicals that are not approved for use at all in food packaging in some jurisdictions. In other words, those chemicals are not even approved to be used in food, but then the plastic industry uses them in making their plastic products, and these plastic products are now used to package foods. So as much as possible, I would suggest, if you can help it, don't put your food in plastic, don't eat in plastic, as much as possible. But of course, we can't run away from plastic. There's no way we can. All we're saying is that we have to know the type that we can safely use and the type of material that we can put into them. As a general rule, I would say don't put anything hot or warm in plastics. Now, there are some societies around the world. You have the Endocrine Society. We have it in Nigeria, the Nigerian Society of Endocrinologists. We have the African version. We have the global, international versions. And then we have other agencies like the, what is it called now? The IPEN. Now, the IPEN, is the International Pollutants Elimination Network. International Pollutants Elimination Network. Now, the IPEN and various endocrine societies around the world have done a lot of studies, and they came up with a particular report. And in that report, they included the following, nuggets. That number one, there are about 144 chemicals or chemical groups known to be hazardous to human health that are actively used in plastics for functions varying from, antimicrobial activity to colorants, to give special colors to the plastic, or to make them flame retardant, or to use them as solvents, or UV stabilizers and plasticizers. About 144 chemicals and chemical groups identified by, the International Pollutants Elimination Network and the International Endocrine Society. Number two, in their report, they also said exposure to toxic chemicals in plastics can occur during the entire lifespan of those plastic products, from the manufacturing, to when it gets to the consumer, until the consumer finishes it and then it goes for recycling, or when it is, disposed, or whatever waste management protocol they apply. So these toxic chemicals continue to leach along the way and continue to, pollute the environment in that chain, from manufacture to the consumer, to recycling, to disposal, to waste management, or what have you. They also reported that endocrine disrupting chemicals, otherwise known as EDCs, endocrine disrupting chemicals exposure is a universal problem. And testing of human samples consistently shows nearly all the people on Earth have EDCs in their bodies. That's endocrine disrupting chemicals, because one of the things that plastic usually does is to serve as an endocrine disruptor or a hormone disruptor. They also reported that microplastics contain chemical additives which can leach out of the microplastic and expose the population to microplastic. They can also bind and accumulate toxic chemicals from the surrounding environment, such as seawater and sediments, and they can function as carriers of toxic compounds. And then in that report also, the International Endocrine Society and the International Pollutants Elimination Network also reported that bioplastics and biodegradable plastics, promoted as more ecological than plastics, actually contain chemical additives like conventional plastics. And they also have endocrine disrupting features and effects as well. So as you can see, whether it is the biodegradable one or the typical traditional plastic, they all have their effects on us. So where do we find plastic in our everyday life? Now, plastic that contains EDCs, endocrine disrupting chemicals, is used extensively in packaging, in the construction industry, in flooring, in food production and packaging, in cookware, in healthcare products, even in children's toys, in leisure goods, in furniture, in our electronics, in textiles, in automobiles, in cosmetics, you name it, everywhere. I have this image that I got, which I hope they can show you. It's like an ocean of plastic, a sea of plastic, and you see an individual swimming in that ocean of plastic. That is the imagery that I get when I think of plastic, particularly in the parts of the world where I live. And it's about time we began to clean up our acts so that we don't bury ourselves in plastic toxicity. Now, there are potential health risks from plastic. Plastic waste, like I said, is ubiquitous. It's all over the planet, and its potential physiological and toxicological effects in humans are not yet fully known, but they are there. As plastic waste proliferates around the world and microplastics found in almost all of human beings on the planet today, an essential question that we all must ask ourselves is, what harm, if any, does plastic cause to human health? Of course, we know that the science is yet, unsettled, but researchers say there is cause for concern. According to National Geographic, there was a report that was written, and I quote, it says, a few years ago, as microplastics began turning up in the guts of fish and shellfish, the concern was focused on the safety of seafood. Shellfish were a particular worry because in their case, unlike fish, we eat the entire animal, the stomach, the microplastics and all. So in 2017, Belgian scientists announced that seafood lovers could consume up to 11,000 plastic particles a year by eating mussels, a favorite dish in Belgium. All right? And according to Harvard Health, studies have found that certain chemicals in plastic can leach out of the plastic and into the food and beverages that we eat. Some of these chemicals have been linked to health problems such as metabolic disorders, including obesity, and reduced fertility in women in particular. Now, plastics contain and leach hazardous chemicals, including, like I said earlier, endocrine disrupting chemicals, EDCs, and these threaten human health, whether it is reproductive health or mental health or whatever. Now, an authoritative new report from the Endocrine Society as well as the International Pollutants Elimination Network that is titled Plastics, EDCs, and Health presents a summary of international research on the health impact of EDCs and describes the alarming health effect of widespread contamination from endocrine disrupting chemicals in plastics. Now, EDCs are chemicals that disturb the body's hormone system, and they can cause cancer, diabetes, reproductive disorders, particularly hormonal imbalance, and I have seen that a lot in women. So when a woman comes to me and we do their hormonal assay and we find that there is derangement in their hormonal profile, particularly their sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, prolactin. Once there's any derangement there, one of the pieces of advice that I give to them is to stop using plastic in terms of drinking from plastic or eating from plastic, particularly hot substances like tea or coffee or eating warm food in any of the 7 categories of plastic. It's one of my recommendations, okay, because it can cause reproductive disorders. It can cause neurological impairments, particularly of developing fetuses and children. Now, the report from the Endocrine Society and the International Pollutants Elimination Network, IPEN, describes a wealth of evidence supporting direct cause and effect links between the toxic chemical additives in plastics and specific health impacts to the endocrine system. Now, in addition to creating safety problems during production, many chemical additives that give plastic products desirable performance properties also have negative environmental and human health effects. And this may include direct toxicity, as in the case of lead, cadmium, and mercury, or carcinogens in plastics, as in the case of diethyl excitolate, DEHP, or endocrine disruption, which can lead to cancers, particularly female cancers, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, what have you, and then birth defects in children, as well as immune system suppression and developmental problems in children. So we must all avoid plastic toxicity. What do we do to avoid that? Don't microwave your food in polycarbonate plastic food containers or any plastic for that matter. In fact, I don't even recommend that you use microwave at all, if at all possible. Polycarbonate is strong and durable, but over time it may break down from overuse and high temperature. Now, plastic containers have recycle codes on the bottom. I have mentioned 1 to 7. Some, but not all plastics that are marked with recycle codes 3 or 7 may be made with BPA. Avoid or reduce your use of canned food, because some cans are lined with plastic in their interior before food is put into them and sealed. Then when possible, opt for glass or porcelain or stainless steel containers, particularly for hot food and liquids. Then use baby bottles and water bottles that are BPA free. Then let's stop littering our environment with plastic products as we normally do. If we must use plastics, then maybe you can opt for the ones that are made of compostable plastic material like bio-based polymers such as cornstarch. Even though, like I said earlier, certain chemical additives in this category of plastics can still be toxic. All right. Our time is up for today. I don't know how many more episodes we're going to have, but there's still so much material to share on environmental toxins. And don't be scared by all these things I'm sharing, because you will now wonder, then what are we going to do now? And then you throw your hands up and say, hey, well, it's pointless trying to even, make certain decisions or do 1 or 2 things. But I want you to understand that this knowledge, this information is helpful. It's not intended to scare you. It's intended to equip you so you can make informed choices, so you can be, you know how to avoid exposure to toxic levels of some of these materials. When we come back next week, we will look at other things that can introduce toxicity into the environment. You'll be shocked about some of the things that I'll be bringing on the table. Don't go, keep a date with us next week, same platform on Facebook and on YouTube, 8 p.m. West African time for Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. And I want you to share this video with your friends and neighbors and maybe your enemies so they can become your friends, because they will thank you for it thereafter. God bless you and have a very beautiful and productive week ahead of you. Bye.
Get ready for an unforgettable experience at the 5F conference coming to you this September. This one-of-a-kind conference is designed to focus on 5 key areas: faith, family, future, finance, and fitness. Prepare yourself for an extraordinary session with our dynamic 5F conference speakers, Reverend Tony Akinyemi, Pastor Wole Abayomi, Professor Bamitale Omole, Pastor Wesley Ogude, and Reverend Austin Upohe. Secure your spot now at 5fconference.tsfchurch.com.
Meet Emily. She is passionate about living a healthy life, but finds it difficult to access information on health and wellness.
Cancer is survivable.
That is until she discovered the online healthy living training offered by Reverend Tony Akinyemi on lms.rafainstitute.org. The online healthy living training program is a comprehensive interactive course that covers topics such as nutrition, fitness, stress management, and mental health. The course is designed to provide participants with practical tips and strategies to improve their health and well-being. Emily is now equipped with the knowledge and skills she needs to live a healthy life. Join Emily and countless others in living a healthy life by signing up for the online healthy living training program today.